bleach is harsh for some fabrics, so it's nice to know that there's an alternative out there. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I'm going to be testing out this color remover right here and see if you actually need to use this before dyeing a garment. So this claims to remove color, it removes dye stains from whites, and it's chlorine bleach free. So this is meant to be an alternative to bleach, which is kind of cool because sometimes bleach can be very harsh with certain fabrics. So it's nice to know that there's something out there that you can use instead of bleach. So in today's video, we're going to test out if you actually need to use this before dyeing a garment or not. So if you're curious to see if there's a difference, then let's get started. I'm starting with this cotton corduroy skirt and I'm cutting it down the middle. That way half of it can be used with the remover and the other one without. So for this color remover, it says to use the stove for best results. And I decided to use an outdoor stove because this does have a very strong chemical smell. So I'd rather be outside than inside, you know, so that's what I'm doing. So once the water is hot, I went ahead and poured half of the packet of the color remover. And then I just took a metal spoon and made sure everything was mixed and all the particles were dissolved. And then I wet half of the skirt and just put it in, and I took my metal spoon and just made sure every little bit was dunked in there. And here it is right after it being soaked. See, you could already tell that it's losing color. So for this, it does say to stir for up to 30 minutes. It says that some will lose color within 10 minutes and some may take up to 30 minutes. I decided to go with the full-on half an hour just to see. And as you can see, it's just getting lighter and lighter. It's giving a very light yellow color. So I'm just turning it and making sure that every section is getting soaked evenly. And then after the half an hour, I noticed that it was a very light yellow. But I was aiming more for like an ivory or an off-white, but I wasn't getting that. So I ended up taking out the skirt and then just adding the rest of the packet. I should have done that from the beginning, should have just put the whole thing, but I don't know why I figured that since it was such a small cloth. I didn't need the whole thing, but it is what it is. Here I am going for a second try, hopefully getting more color removed. So I'm just doing the same thing, just mixing it. And for this one, I only left it for 20 minutes. So here it is after the 20 minutes. Definitely not much of a difference, but it is lighter than it was before I put in that second half, you know, so I'm glad I did it. And then I'm going to put it into the sink and just rinse this with hot water, just making sure to get all that product out. And then I'm switching to cold water and then just doing the same thing, just rinsing it and then removing the excess water. Then I'm going to throw this into the wash with an old towel, and I'm going to use the delicate cycle with some detergent, and then I'm just going to let it air dry. And then I'm just going to sew the skirt back together before dyeing them. That way they just go into the dye bath together. And here is a side-by-side of with the remover and without. There's definitely a difference. I wish it would have been off-white, but hey, at least it's a light yellow and not as intense as the tan. And now to prep for the dye bath, I'm pouring some hot water into a bucket and I heated up this water into the stove because dye works best with hot water. So I'm pouring my dye into the bucket and I'm using the Rit all-purpose dye in the color Scarlet. So this is going to be like a bright red. So then I'm just going to take my metal spoon and just mix everything together. And the instructions say to add dish soap. So I'm adding 2 pumps of palmolive. And it also says to add some salt. So I'm just pouring the last bit of salt that I had. So then I'm just mixing everything, making sure it's all together. Then I'm wetting my skirt and just dunking it into the dye bath. And once again, I'm going to soak it using the metal spoon and just making sure every little section gets soaked with the dye. And here it is right after it being dunked. And you can already see a difference. Do you see how the remover side is like already much brighter than the other side? So we're going to see if that is consistent throughout the entire thing. So for this dye, it says to stir consistently for up to an hour. I'm going to do the full-on hour just to see how intense this color can get and see if there's actually a difference since I am dyeing 2 different colors, so we'll see. So I'm going to keep stirring and stirring, and I'm going to show you clips of how the skirt is looking as it progresses. You can definitely still see the difference between the two as they're absorbing the dye more and more. So once the hour is up, I'm going to take this out. And I do want to use a dye fixative for this just so I have less bleeding. So I'm getting a whole new bucket and then pouring hot water into it. Then I'm taking 1/4 of a cup of the fixative and just pouring it in there and just taking my spoon and mixing everything up. Then I took out the skirt out of the dye bath and I put it in there. As you can see, there is some bleeding of the dye, but this fixative is supposed to help with that in the future when you wash it. For this, you're supposed to continuously stir for 20 minutes. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. The dye bath is looking really red, but like I mentioned, this is supposed to help it. So I'm just doing this for 20 minutes. And then after the 20 minutes are up, I'm taking it out. I'm putting it into the sink. And then I'm going to rinse this with cold water. As you can see, once I'm rinsing it, you can't see any bleeding at all. Like that fixative works. I've mentioned this before, but this thing works. So I'm just rinsing it. And then once it's rinsed, I'm going to throw it into the wash once again with an old towel, some detergent on the delicate cycle. cycle, and then I'm gonna let this air dry, and then we're gonna come back to see how these look. And here we have it after it's been air dried. This is the side that was used with the color remover, and this is the side without. As you can see, there is a slight difference with the color. This one is more of a brighter red, while this one is more of a rusty red. So not the same, but definitely not that different. But even though they are a bit different, if you were to see them by themselves, it wouldn't be much of a difference. So you see this one, what do you see? A red skirt. And then you see this side, what do you see? A red skirt. It looks a little bit rusty, but it's not that much of a difference. So it's definitely interesting to see what a slight difference the color remover actually created. And here we have the skirt once again. Honestly, I'm super surprised with these results right here because as you saw when I was dyeing, this one always stood out the most. This one was looking the brightest in comparison to this one. Like I could always tell what side was which because this one just had more color to it. So I was like, when these dry, these are definitely going to be different. But no, look at that. They're still different, but still similar. Like you could tell they're still in the same color family. But I will say that this color right here, the one without the remover, is closer in color to the dye that I actually used. So this is a scarlet red, and it definitely leads a more brighter red in comparison to this one right here, which is more like a rusty red. So it's not the same, but it's still not completely different. So you definitely have to think about the base that you're starting off with. If you want to end up with a color that is definitely more true to the color that you're dyeing, I would definitely say go ahead and do the extra step of removing the color because you're going to get a truer color like that. But if you're looking to just dye something, give it a little makeover, and you really don't care about the end result, you just want it to be a different color, then I will say you necessarily don't have to do the color remover because this one on its own, it still looks like it's red. We did start off with a tan, so I'm glad that the red actually reacted well to it. But you also have to think about the base color that you're starting off with. So let's say you're starting off with a navy, but you want your end result to be this bright red. Obviously, you will have to use a color remover for that because a navy mixed with red is going to give you a purple. So you're definitely not going to get results like this. So you have to think about what base color you're using, what end result you want it to be. So basically, think about the end results you want for your garment, but keep in mind that this color remover right here doesn't work to remove the blue out of denim. So if you're trying to get some blue jeans to be pink, maybe it can work, but if it's like a dark denim, it's not going to work. This isn't going to pull the blue from it. And then this also doesn't work on patterned garments. So if you have a print going on with your shirt or your dress or whatever, this isn't going to take away that print. It might pull the original fabric color, but anything that's printed on it, this won't take it away. So keep that in mind because if you do dye over that, you might still have the print going on. And then before I forget, this only works on cotton, linen, wool, rayon, and rami. And then it specifically says not recommended for polyester or blue denim. So don't say I didn't warn you. So I really hope you guys enjoyed my little comparison on whether the color remover works or not. Final thoughts, does it work? I think it does because it got the truer color. But I also say that maybe it's not necessary because look, you still have a red going on. It's a different shade, but it's still red. So like I mentioned, it all depends on what you want. But moving forward with my dye projects, I will definitely keep this in mind and use it in the future. I like that you can use it on colors and whites, and I like that this is a bleach alternative because like I mentioned earlier, bleach is harsh for some fabrics, so it's nice to know that there's an alternative out there. So once again, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to leave me your thoughts in the comments, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not already, and yeah, I'll catch you in my next video. Bye!